Welcome to Echoes of My Imagination. My name is Tracy Lee. Sit back, relax. Let me tell you a story. Today's story is called How the World Works, a collection of short stories told by the forces that shape everything. Written by Tracy Lee Thompson. Let's get into it. Fire. It never crept. Fire arrived all at once, teeth bared, breath fast, movement immediate. It began with a break, a snapped bond between molecules, a rush of air where none had belonged, and then heat surged into being, released, not summoned. That was all it needed. Fire never asked for permission. It came alive the moment fuel, air, and heat crossed paths with no one watching. A dry leaf, a strand of bark, the fine dust on old stone. It caught, it flared, and then it climbed. Always up. Not because it reached, because heat lifts, hot gases swell, stretch wide, and rise fast. Flame followed, not like a dancer, but like something being pulled through the sky by force alone. A draft became a current, and fire rode it like instinct. At its base, where breath and vapor mixed cleanly, it burned blue-white, nearly invisible, so hot it left no ash behind. Above that, it thickened to orange and gold as the oxygen waned and the carbon lingered. At its edges, it blurred into red, cooler, slower, flame fading towards the shape of smoke. Color wasn't decoration. It was evidence, a record of heat and chemistry playing out in motion. Carbon glowed as it broke, sodium flared yellow, copper shone green. Even metals had voices in fire, written in brief flashes of spectral light. It never stood still. Every flicker was change in motion, every shift a result of something invisible adjusting, airflow, density, fuel, angle, time. Fire never had a face, but it always left fingerprints. It wrapped around wood differently than it did around coal. Wood gave it chaos, resin, vapor, trapped water. The flame danced wild, noisy, full of crackle and scent. It fed fast, burned bright, and left behind a delicate skeleton of blackened lattice. Coal, though, was slower, more focused. All its chaos pressed out over time. Fire didn't dance with coal, it settled into it, pulsing from deep inside. No flame needed, just a low, smoldering glow that held more heat than light. Even when the last flame vanished, the heat remained. Coals radiated in silence, the energy leaving not as light, but warmth. Waves longer than eyes could see, but skin could feel. That was fire too. The aftermotion, the last exhale. It was never tame, even when bottled in lanterns, watched in hearths, shaped into candlelight. It still remembered what it was. It still hungered. Smother it, and it gasped. Starve it, and it curled inward, red fading to gray. But given even a little air, a sliver of fuel, a tiny push of heat, it would rise again. It wasn't destruction, not really. It was transition, the truth of change made visible, made hot. It unmade bonds so that something new could form in their place. That was fire. Not evil, not kind, not safe. Just exact, just alive. And it never once apologized. Water. It moved before the land did. Before mountains learned their names or wind learned to howl, water was already tracing its slow, looping signature into the skin of the world. It moved without edges, without beginning, not because it was wild, but because it was constant. Pressure meant nothing to it. Shape was only borrowed. In a still canyon it gathered, not by accident, not by intent. It was drawn downward, pulled by invisible force, collecting where gravity whispered the lowest secrets. It waited only long enough to learn the walls. Then it began its work. pressed. Not in a rush, there was no rush in it. It pressed with certainty. It seeped into cracks too fine for air to notice, crept beneath stone, softened hardened clay, and began the long, slow ritual of breaking everything open. The land thought itself solid, but water knew better. Even frozen it moved. Ice expanded into hairline fractures, lifting boulders like breath lifts ribs. Even mist it touched. It curled through leaves, settled into roots, dissolved minerals no eye could see. Even vapor. It carried weight suspended high in the sky, waiting for just the right drop in pressure to fall. Water never stayed where it was placed, not because it disobeyed, but because its nature was motion. If trapped, it pushed. If spilled, it found the low place. If forced uphill, it waited for release. And when it didn't run in silence. It pulled earth with it, tiny grains, heavy metals, forgotten bone, salt, memory. The faster it moved, the more it carried. At speed, it cut through rock like blade through fruit. At rest, it built, laid down sediment, layer after layer, proof that time had passed. There was no line between softness and force. That was the water's truth. It could wear stone down to powder or hold a spiderweb aloft without breaking it. It could drown a city or quench the thirst of a dying seed. When fire burned, water came. When blood spilled, water carried it. When steam rose from flesh, water left last. It didn't crave form, but it held it when given, cupped in hands, trapped in glass, stretched across ocean beds. And even then it kept moving, always evaporating, condensing, melting, freezing, soaking, rising, falling. Not in chaos, not in defiance, but in cycle without complaint. Water didn't resist gravity. It just knew how to wait until gravity gave it a path. Water didn't need permission. It didn't ask to be sacred, but it was. It was the first mirror, the first baptism, the first warning. And when it was gone, things stopped living, not immediately, but certainly. Even stone cracked without it, even flame died. It didn't rage, it returned over and over in 100 forms, clear, muddy, hot, frozen, acid bright, bone sweet, blood warm, but always itself. Even when polluted, even when poisoned, even when buried, it still moved, still reached. Water didn't need direction, just space to go. Air. It moved because stillness didn't suit it. Even before flame or breath or feather, it moved. Long before anything called it wind, it slipped over stone and slid through shallow seas, unseen and constant. Pressure whispered, heat shifted, and air flowed. It carried nothing at first, no songs, no birds. The early sky was thick, sour, heat-swollen. No oxygen, no space for flame, no hope of lungs. Just a swirl of gases spun off from rock and time. That version of air would have suffocated the world we know, but the world wasn't finished yet. The world had algae. Tiny things in shallow oceans drank sunlight and exhaled something new, not on purpose, not as a gift, just waste. Something left over from the process of eating light and building bodies. Oxygen. It rose slow and steady. It didn't belong at first. It rusted the stones. It poisoned the old air. It rewrote the chemistry of sky and earth, but it stayed. And as the poison settled in, other things adapted. Fire found breath. Lungs found fuel. Sound found a way to travel. And the air learned to carry more than pressure. Now it moved like blood between everything, seeping, pressing, adjusting. It wasn't clean, it wasn't empty. It was full. Nitrogen coasting quietly, oxygen riding urgently, carbon dioxide exhaled and inhaled again by soil, breath, and sea. When warm sunlight touched one side of the land and shadow cooled the other, air surged across the difference. That was wind, not made, just allowed. Hot air rose, cool air fell, and in between the whole sky moved. It didn't have a face, but it shaped everything it touched. It bent the knees of trees and tugged smoke from the mouths of chimneys. It pulled moisture from oceans and dropped it far inland as rain. It didn't carry scent. It was sense only road. And sound, vibration made real, lived only because air allowed it to pass. Inside lungs, air just wasn't filler. It was exchange. The oxygen once exhaled by ancient oceans now crossed cell walls in silence, bound itself to blood, and vanished deep into the body before being returned, changed, heavier, spent. Every creature breathed this cycle. Every breath was part of a rhythm older than bone. Air didn't think, it didn't care, but it reacted every time. A canyon, a thunderclap, a child's shout, a match struck in a quiet room. The air around each of them shifted to make room, to carry, to respond. It had no need to rest. It was always shifting, pushing, lifting, pressing, through lungs, over oceans, beneath wings, against skin. No part of the world escaped its reach, because the world itself needed it to move. And when the air truly stopped, when it couldn't shift, couldn't carry, couldn't flow, things died. Without it, sound vanished, fire withered, breath ended. But that was rare. Air didn't stop, it moved, because it always had, because it always would. Stone. It began in heat so fierce it glowed. Deep beneath the crust, molten rock surged upward, found a chill, and locked solid, sharper than broken glass, dark and new. That cooling left crystals inside, tight as secrets, and cracks that once carried the last breath of magma now lay silent. Far from the fires, other stone gathered grain by grain. A quiet rain of silt, shell, and ash drifted to the floor of an ancient sea. Weight piled over weight until softness vanished. The layers stiffened into bands, light, dark, light again. Each stripe a thin ledger of a world long buried. In some layers lay the curled outline of a trilobite or the delicate fan of a fern, life caught mid-motion, pressed flat, now harder than bone. Deeper still, pressure and slow heat met rock that already had a history. Under that crush, minerals slid past one another, aligning like threads pulled taut. No melting, only rearranging. Veins of quartz bent. Dark mica found new shine. The stone changed its pattern, but not its substance, proof that weight can rewrite without erasing. Not every origin lay below. One night, a stray fragment from space punched through the upper air and slammed into the ground. Its skin flashed to liquid, then froze again before stopping. Inside the heavy core, traces of nickel and iron hinted at places beyond the sky. Across a broad plain, a summer storm drove a single bolt into a dune. Heat hotter than any furnace raced through sand, fusing grains into a hollow, twisting tube of pale glass. When day broke, nothing else marked the strike, just a fragile cast of lightning's path. Stone did not move itself, yet it traveled. A glacier, slow as a century's heartbeat, ground across a valley, dragging boulders and scraping grooves knee-deep into the bedrock. The ice melted, the scar remained. Down in river canyons, water worked quicker, rolling pebbles until their edges vanished, leaving them smooth as eggs. What the river carried away became sand, stone ground so fine it flowed with the current, later to drift on wind or settle as another newborn layer. Roots found hairline fractures and pried them wider season by season. Winter water seeped in, froze, expanded, and split cliffs with the ease of a quiet breath. Far from below, plates of crust strained against one another. The push lifted entire ranges, tilting seabed into skyline. Peaks rose, then slowly surrendered, grain by grain, back to the wind. Stone absorbed warmth all day and released it long after sunset. It refused flame, shrugged at rot, and outlasted every wooden beam laid upon it. Even shattered, it stayed stone, fragments holding the same story, only in smaller voices. Cities perched on it, roots gripped it. Bones nestled into soil that lay thin atop it. And beneath carved pillars and quiet graveyards, the oldest layers kept their stripes, fossils, and scars, unchanged by anything short of the planet's deepest fires. Stone offered no lesson, no warning. It simply held, a weight beneath every step, carrying ages without a word. And that's it for today. Thank you for joining me for Echoes of My Imagination. My name is Tracy Lee. Don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and follow. And I'll catch you next time.